So the world system is changing. In all spheres of human life, empirical evidence abound all around us to support a changing world. Now, from the health sector to agriculture, education and infrastructure, nations all over the world are seeking ways to adapt to a new normal. Businesses and organizations are also repositioning and re-strategizing to come up with sustainable ways of delivering their products and services to our larger society. Now, impact and of course remain profitable as companies build a more positive and sustainable work culture. The engineering sector is also not left out. Development experts acknowledge that engineers have as much important role as other professions in fostering sustainable development. Now, by mainstreaming innovation into planning, for instance, building projects and what have you, engineers also help to preserve natural resources, save costs, and support human and natural environment. That in all aspects of engineering services, whether it is designing, architectural work, or infrastructural construction, road, bridges, water, the engineer is very, very instrumental in the way things are done to accelerate sustainable development. Products, goods, and services are also delivered and consumed. Now, the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 17, that's the 17 SDG goals, encourage nations, member nations, to prioritize innovation in meeting their priorities. So what is the Nigerian Society of Engineers doing, or what must they do differently to deliver sustainable development in the various areas of our needs? How can they innovate to address critical areas like road infrastructure, for instance, water, agriculture, and even education? So in late edition this week, we engage members of this noble profession on how they too can make engineering sustainable, profitable for the good of the larger society, especially for Nigeria. I am Claire Adilabu Abdulrazak. Thank you for joining me on this week's edition. Engineer Mohammed Olatunji Baba Kobe is, Engineer Mohammed Olatunji Baba Kobe Abdul Kadri is a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, and he's a civil and structural engineer. After his tertiary education in an institute in Russia, Krasnodar, I hope he will explain that to me, where he obtained MSc Civil Engineering. Sorry, I'll say that again. How do you call that?
Krasnodar.
Krasnodar. Okay, so please come back. Krasnodar. Krasnodar. Okay, Krasnodar. So let's go again. Engineer, take two. Engineer Mohammed Olatunji Baba Kobe Abdul Kadri is a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers. He's a civil structural engineer. Now, after his tertiary education in Krasnodar Engineering Institute, that's in Russia, where he obtained his MSc Civil Engineering and the National Service, he then joined the Federal Civil Service of Nigeria as a people engineer in 1987. Now, in the course of his service, he worked in provision of infrastructure in various sectors, including health, education, defense, sports, and most importantly, railway transport. Now, he retired from the Federal Civil Service in the year 2022 after attaining the post of director. He has delivered many projects across the length and breadth of Nigeria, and among those projects are the National Stadium Abuja, several municipal infrastructures across the 6 geopolitical zones of the country, and the federal government's program on rejuvenation and modernization projects of the Nigerian railway transport infrastructure. I won't forget that. Now, Engineer Baba Kobe Mohammed Olatunji is a fellow and corporate member of local and international professional bodies, among, of course, which are the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Nigerian Institute of Structural Engineers, American Society of Civil Engineers, Canadian Society for Civil Engineers, and Nigerian Institute of Management. Engineer Tasiu Gidari-Wudil is the 33rd president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, NSE, and he's chairman, principal consultant of Grid Link Power and Energy. He's a graduate of Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Bauchi, where he obtained both bachelor and master's of engineering in electrical engineering, power and machines. He's currently a PhD student in electrical engineering, power and machines. Now, in his working career, he was a power system protection control and metering engineer under the then NEPA, PHCN, of course, TCN, and he was responsible for the design, construction, and maintenance of transformers, lines, and substation. He headed the networks unit of the Engineering Performance and Monitoring Division of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, and he was also responsible for technical regulations and standardization in the Nigerian electricity supply industry. He led the team on the development of technical codes and standards such as the grid code, distribution code, metering code, smart engineering regulation guidelines for the certification of metering services and related matters. Now also, he was involved in the review of some IEC metering standards and development of the African Committee of IEC Guide of Application of Standards for Smart Metering Systems in Africa. And of course, he has headed quite a number of companies. And Engineer Wudil is a registered professional engineer, Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, COREN. He's fellow Nigerian Society of Engineers, senior member, Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, New York, USA. He's a member, Power and Energy Society, Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, fellow Nigerian Institute of Management, professional member, American Society of Safety Engineers, and so many more. Engineer Kashim Ali has over 2 decades of thereabout of civil engineering experience. Now, he started his career as a project supervisor with Benue State Government and later became a principal engineer at the Federal Capital Development Agency, FCDA, and rose to a chief resident engineer in charge of planning and design of water resources. Engineer Ali was appointed acting director FCT Water Board in 2005 and then became substantive director a year later in 2006. Now, he was a member of Vision 2020, Steering and Implementation Committee. Engineer Ali was the president of Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, COREN. He's a registered civil engineer with postgraduate training in highways, water resources, railway engineering, as well as project management and strategy. He is a fellow and past president, as I said, of Nigerian Society of Engineers, fellow Academy of Engineering and Technology for Developing World. And Engineer is also a member of the governing boards of National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI, and the Nigeria Content Development and Monitoring Board, NCDMB. Gentlemen, it's my pleasure indeed to welcome all of you to Late Edition this week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I mean, we have celebrated engineering, Engineering Day, and I know the president. You were on one of our programs, to talk about it. But let's just begin by looking at the relationship between engineering and sustainable development, because that was the theme, for this year's celebration. Let's start with the president.
Yes, thank you. The 17 sustainable goals of the United Nations are basically, I think 14 of them have direct relationship with engineering. They are engineering based. So any sustainable development without engineering, there is no development. And like we said, this year, we have the goals, but we have to find a way of meeting the goals. And the World Federation of Engineering Organization says, okay, you engineers, find an innovative way of achieving these ideas. And in another word, what is the position of innovation in the SDGs? And I keep saying engineering is all about innovation. Innovation means a way of doing things different from what we are used to. So for you to be able to solve engineering problem, you must be innovative. Problems are always there. In fact, while you are trying to solve one problem, you create another problem. While you are doing that, that means you are going to be multidimensional in your thinking, in your analysis, so that by the time you bring a solution, you also take care of the likely problems that will come from that solution. That makes it sustainable. That makes it bring in the resilience in the infrastructure. So this year we want to make the world to be more resilient in engineering solution, in engineering systems, which means in the whole life of the human race.
Okay, Engineer Baba Kobe, I know that the world is changing. All over the world, we're talking about adapting to, changes that climate factors have brought to us. And I'm wondering, are the challenges that confront humanity today basically that of engineering? And how is it related, with sustainable development?
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to start by letting us explore what the meaning of sustainability. Sustainability in itself means a development that strives to enable meeting of needs of developing countries, most especially today, without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs and carry out a sustainable living. Now, the reality today is that we have ever-increasing population, we are consuming more, and there's more waste, and the energy efficiency is has become a great issue. So the role of engineers at sustainable development is ever more required than before. If you look, engineers create the assets and infrastructure that make the world function. We live, we play, we work in the world of engineering creation. And I believe to surmount the challenges that are coming up now, especially to achieve a sustainable effort, engineering has to change their mindset and approach to project delivery. We have to come within the pillars and principles of sustainable development, which include, in the order that the United Nations has put it, first is the environment. We have to make sure that we are able to deal with environmental protection measures. We have to deal with economy. Projects must support economic growth and development. We have to deal with the issue of society, social sustainability, and culture. Culture, of course, must be part of this due to our level and diversities in terms of development. So I see the role of engineers as so very important. We can say that without engineering profession, without active and leading role of engineers, sustainable development cannot become a reality.
Okay, Engineer Kashim Ali, we have this mentality. Once a habit is formed, it's difficult to reorientate. Yes, and all that. And the mentality we have is once you hear the word engineer, oh, he's an engineer. Your road goes okay. Maybe he's a house builder. So yes, but basically, if you look at the 17 sustainable development goals, they touch engineering. What exactly is the role of engineers?
Well, the engineering is about solving mankind's problem. Any problem that is complex, that is life and death threatening, is engineering that provides a solution. I'll give you an example. Today, medical science is being projected for doing so many wonders. But nobody has bothered to look at the back end. When you say non-intrusive surgical processes, you are using robotic technology. That is engineering. That is biomedical engineering. But as is with engineering, engineering teaches humility, and sometimes we push to even the point of acting primitively, because it's only an engineer that will not shout and advertise himself. So even the engineer has provided a solution. And
Medical doctors don't advertise themselves.
No, when they do that operation, everybody says, the doctor has done magic. But they don't ask, how did he do it? He didn't use his
They don't trace the means.
Exactly. They use the equipment developed by somebody. If a program has just been developed and you've used it, it's costing the money. There should be an acknowledgement of who even developed it before you applied it. Because if they should apply such equipment and they don't work, they will now blame the person who developed it. But when it works, nobody cares again. One life, see, if there's an epidemic, for instance, you need a solution. Engineering provides it. For instance, what we have in our own environment, like when we have cholera. When you have cholera, because the quality of water has gone so bad that it cannot no longer provide safety for consumers, you need water resources engineering to solve it. When you have an election that is problematic, you need engineering to solve it, because engineering can develop equipment that you could use that will make it hand-free and even human contact-free. From the comfort of your home, you could make your voting, and all these crises we have now will not come up. So there's no problem that cannot be solved with engineering, indeed.
Engineer Wode, just for you to make sense of, the situation now, and I'm wondering whether engineering, not the engineers now, the engineering profession, has been able to provide real solutions to our needs. And when I say I mean the challenges that are peculiar, to Nigeria.
Okay, it's good you've said engineering. And engineering means, one, the work of the engineers, the work of the technologists, the technicians, and the craftsmen. You will agree with me that you have a constant mechanic who takes care of your vehicle. That is a craftsman. His work is engineering at the level of craftsmanship. The technologists we have mostly in the factories, they are the ones who are doing the nitty-gritty of the production. The technicians are there to support them. The engineer is the head, and he does the designs, supervises the production, supervises the construction and the commissioning. Now, nobody in Nigeria will tell me that he has not have contact with any one of these. But the mistake we are making is we are always looking at the engineer, whose job is mostly hidden. He does the design. He makes sure that the design is followed and constructed. Especially when you come to physical infrastructure that you see, like the roads, the buildings. And as my past president here said, If it is hospital, health, we try to look for the best doctor. If it is legal issue, we don't go to quacks, we go to lawyers, sons, and hire them to protect us. But when it comes to engineering, we don't go to the right people. Even governments. I must tell you, even governments.
Again, I know you continue, but do you think that our society, our environment today, engineering is sustainable driven? If you look at the different sectors and what is happening.
You see, that sustainability issue, it also goes with political wills. Most of the time, most of our colleagues in government, they are also part of the government system, whereby you advise, your own is advice. If your client, who is your employer, the government, does not take your advice, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. That is why some of us have to leave prematurely, to leave government. I left government prematurely because I felt this is not the place for me. I can't change things, so I should go to where I can work freely. And my professional advice is considered and is valued. But in private sector, you look at the private sector, people don't invest their money and they employ professionals and don't listen to them. They do. Our colleagues in the private sector are doing well because the shareholders of such companies wouldn't like to lose based on the not following the professional advice of their client, of their yes. So that's what we have now. And let me also give you this information. We have Nigerian companies that are competing with best known international companies now. If you go to Akwa Ibom State, you will see road, and believe you me, you will say it is the giant international companies that build them. But they are built by Nigerian engineering companies. So that sustainability is not exactly lying squarely on the engineers. It also lies square on the part of the society that will give that will to be able to listen to the engineers.
Let me move forward. Engineer Babakobe, here in our country, we've got the engineers, we've got the brains. Are we saying it's only political will that is challenging us? You see their race, you see construction, you see road construction, you see bridges, underwater. I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Okay, thank you very much. If you talk of the innovations and new engineering products outside the soil of most developing nations,
I call them sustainable engineering.
Okay, we'll come to whether they're sustainable and whether they can be applied across board. For me, part of a developing country in our own climate, sustainability will take different shapes from climate to climate. If you look at it, I think what is general and what is empirical under sustainable development is the environment. If first of all we're able to take care of and prevent the environment from degradation. Now, and that is the solution and options for sustainable consumption has led those countries to all this innovation that you have seen. And be that as it may, one of those issues that remain a challenge for us here, and also an opportunity for engineering profession and in practice, is issue of economy. This is also a pillar of sustainable development. Our economy is at a stage that we cannot, with a large, knowledge that can be controverted in this matter. We cannot answer all the sustainability pillars. Okay, how do you tell me that I have a depleting economy, resources, I want to protect the environment, I want to save the planet, but in the developing world, you are going to tell me not to exploit my natural resources, fossil fuel, coal, and what have you, because it's inimical to
the environment.
Yes, carbon emission problems, net zero issues, that we cannot meet it. But if we don't exploit
there is a gap there to be filled.
Yes, so if you don't do all these things and still go by the rudimentary transport that we have, and that is what our economic development level can bear, how do we fulfill all? So in the developing countries, in the attempt to meet the needs of their own people, they must transgress the issue of sustainability and environment consideration under the sustainable development goals. But one thing stands out for the engineers in terms of innovation and what they have to do today. If you look in the past centuries, engineers have achieved remarkable feat. Engineers have been in the forefront of make the society to function. We are in telecommunication, in transportation, in electricity, agricultural engineering, and so on and so forth. But then we have not been looking at the impact of all these engineering feats on the environment, on sustainable society. But now there's a clarion call to come and take that into consideration. Begin to see human enhancement and nature enhancement as in participation, so that we can achieve at the end of the day a society, a community that is sustainable.
Okay, Engineer Babakobi, I would also like you to relate, if we have, what we can do with regard, because I know that you have ample experience in rail construction, yes, and how can we mainstream, sustainability, in such infrastructure, transport infrastructure. When we come back, Engineer Kashim would also respond. Okay. You're watching Late Edition this week, and we're looking at engineering and sustainable development in Nigeria. My guests are very, very members of the noble profession, of the engineering profession, and they're here with me. We'll be right back in just a moment. Don't go away.
You can't fight piracy, you can't fight a war.
Therefore, you don't claim your rights.
The challenge I see is in the fiscal.
Do we have to wait until we have a problem?
See, the problem with those who speak on behalf of themselves and the country is that they should have facts. I'm speaking now as Minister for Transport.
For you to become economically independent, you must have to curtail level of importation of other people's products and services.
How rich you are, you can't bring certain vehicle into the country.
There's no competitiveness within the state.
I am Claire Adilabu Abdulrazak. Thanks for joining me. All right, welcome back. You're watching Late Edition this week, and my guests are Engineer Mohammed Olatunji Babakobi. He is, of course, a fellow Nigerian Society of Engineers. Engineer Tasiu Gidari Wude, who is the president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, and we also have Engineer Kashim Ali, former president of NSC and former president of Koren. Also here with me. Gentlemen, once again, I thank you. Engineer Kobi, before we come back to you to speak on those issues, I'd like Engineer Kashim Ali to also speak on the issue that we've been talking about.
Our problem, if we want to restrict to Nigeria now, we have mindset problem. And in Nigeria is in Nigeria, whether in Nigeria or outside. I want to just make a small reference to this collapse of structures that you're trying to tie it around the neck of the engineer. You know, the fellow whose structure failed in Ikoyi and killed him, he had a failed structure also in England. He built a structure that collapsed in England. So because he went with that mindset that I could do it without following all the rules that you know, sometimes people just say engineers are too picky. You say this is not good, this is not. But those things are the things that you must do to keep alive. I won't say that there is a lot we have as a challenge in Nigeria. We have the same mindset thing. We have not learned to respect opinion from home. For instance, we're talking about this issue of banning the use of fossil fuel and all manners of things, close down the coal stations and don't even open them at all. But see this little fight between Russia and Ukraine. Europe has gone to their coal fields. They are opened up. So what happened to sustainable zero emission policy? What happened to that? They did not consult us before they went back to open their own. And they are now using them effectively. Today, the use of coal is now in fashion, whereas nobody has told us why we cannot use our own. So, but we often prefer to listen to such advice than we listen to our own. The policy has failed in engineering, not engineering itself. I'll give you an example. And talking about sustainability and innovation. Serious governments, subnational governments have shown seriousness and the fact that things are doable. One example is Ebonyi State. Ebonyi state government has done 15 flyovers. 13 of them were done wholly by Nigerian engineers in Ebonyi State. They are doing the longest airport runway in Africa. They built the biggest mall in Africa, the biggest hospital in Africa. These things were all done. In fact, the hospital was provided by a female engineer. Unfortunately, she lost her life recently. The president also, who is in the infrastructure, the roads and everything, also lost his life. For whatever reason, they lost their lives. But Ebonyi has those infrastructure to gain from with little resources. If you had gone to take the normal way of doing things without being innovative, he will be in debt. Because I asked, when we visited, we asked, and he's not owing anybody on those projects. A lot of things have also been done.
That's exactly what we're saying.
Yes, so
we need more of this.
But what I want, no, a lot is going on in other places. A lot is going on in Kaduna. El-Rufai is doing what he did in Abuja, in Kaduna. But nobody is focusing on that. Yesterday I was having a discussion with somebody who told me that that El-Rufai was effective, but he was not humane. I said, you can't mix the two. You all Nigerians crave for Singapore. You crave for Rwanda. But you don't know, in Rwanda, it's not democracy that is bringing development. It's near dictatorship that is bringing development. Can you accommodate that in Nigeria? When we demolish houses in Nigeria, the public will force you to build alternative for those people for whom, as well as the poor, whose houses have been demolished. You don't have that in other places. But when engineers advise...
But there are alternatives for those people in other places.
Well,
there are alternatives. The government makes provision, provision.
There's no provision. I was on a study tour of those countries in 2010. There's nothing. You see, it's not what you see. It's what people want you to see that you see. And unfortunately, the mentality in Nigeria, we want to only project the negatives. We don't project positives.
One would be wondering why we are having death of transportation infrastructure when we have a number of engineering solutions available. Engineer Baba.
Thank you very much. I think the problems of development of in the railway sector, you have mentioned railway, right? And even generally transportation sector is multivarious. And I want to say that from the public sector point of view, where I just left, government is coping with some of the issues as much as possible. I want to take it from the sustainable development angle of it. If you look at it, when we start a project at all, we start with feasibility, and we start with environmental and social impact, which is assessment of those projects. Apart from the commercial feasibilities, we must get that approval to commence the project. So that is one area that we are in compliance with sustainability pillars. And if you move from there, you come into the economic angle. Like as rightly stated, a number of issues are here. And one of those things that government has done, and I think government should continue also to review, is the analysis of the volume of traffic in terms of both passengers and freight across the country, and the available existing essential infrastructure for transport, and look at the deficit. So from here, we can begin to determine what actually is the provision that they require. As a way of achieving sustainability, because transport infrastructure, especially railway, is very, in terms of investment, it's very huge. So how do we go about this in a rational?
I mean, Lagos is a model.
Yeah.
You see what Lagos is doing in terms of transportation.
It's costing a lot of money, and most of it are on loan. The projects are being financed through loans. So, as I was saying, we need to look at an integrative assessment that is involving all modes.
We, the NSC, the Nigerian Society of Engineers.
Nigeria as an entity, as
because we are looking at your role now.
Yes, I'm saying yes. Engineers should come and come out with a action plan, an action plan that will deal with how, for example, do we minimize debt burden by taking loan to build our infrastructure. There are a number of areas that Nigerian engineers have already spoken about. We have looked at recycling the old infrastructure. We have looked at what I've just said now, because Nigerian engineers took part in the integrated master plan for transport infrastructure, that you integratively do an assessment of all our mode of transport and see how we can do moving from one mode to the other and still make the end-to-end value chain achieved. Okay? So that will reduce the overall capital cost. If we are able to reduce the overall capital cost, at least we are able to come on board, satisfying the national economic needs. And then from there, you can think of innovation, just like the one we have mentioned now.
The railway, for instance, the technology has evolved. For instance, even what you see in Europe now, you see the lines of today. Where we've gone, we have, in terms of knowledge, we have gone beyond that. Yeah. Where we can put our line on an additional track on ground. I was involved in a railway project in FCT, and we looked at it, developed it, brought it, but the cost was not accepted. Or the government said they could not afford that additional cost. Mm-hmm. So let's leave it the way it is until some other time. So that's what I'm saying. But when somebody wants to tell a story, you say, look, they are engineers and people are using electric train or elsewhere. We are using locomotive. So we are using we are using diesel. But the truth is, even for the power, what we said was, we can have dedicated power. You remember even in this city one time, when there was crisis, we had some captive power that we had. We had one station in Beggar Junction. Yes. We had one in near Apple. I had one in Clipper Garage that boosted supply. We could have such captive power to even power our rail. The design of that and development that is not a challenge.
The problem
we have is that somebody has to be an off-taker. We have the embodiment of the ideas. We have the design concepts. We can design and implement it. But no design implementation of an engineering infrastructure is done without financial resources. So the person holding the finances must be ready to provide the. If you know the kind of innovation that has taken place in this country, agencies, if you know what Naseni, for instance, had prototypes that it had developed, if we put all the things we need to do into use in this country, and I'm hoping that the next administration will focus on that. They say, look, let's look inwards and do everything in Nigeria. Believe you me, you'll be shocked that we can achieve so much at substantially lower rates.
Okay, again, credibility of our engineers is you know, at the root of whatever reason why, you know, for the lack of patronage of, you know, indigenous engineers. But Engineer Wudir, I'm looking at agriculture now, because a lot of people have said, look, if we do things differently from the way we used to, you know, do agriculture, it will solve a lot of things. It will help us in our food security. It will help sort out farmer header clashes and all that. So, and I'm wondering, why are we not innovating? Why are we not applying science in agriculture? Or are we?
Thank you. We are. You see, as Engineer Kashim Ali said, engineering challenge is identifying a challenge and coming to the conclusion that it is an engineering problem. Then you bring in the engineers and ask them to solve it. If you give them the enabling environment to solve it and they cannot solve it, then that is when we start blaming Nigerian engineers. I keep saying this. About 40 years ago, the Nigerian Society of Engineers challenged the government of the day to give it the design of the second Niger Bridge. We came out, we said, okay, as Nigerian Society of Engineers, we are ready to put our life on the line. Give us this challenge. But nobody listened to us. They would rather like to go outside, get a white technician to come and pretend that he's this. Then they will go and do the drawings, do the designs in their own Europe and bring it back. That's why whenever I have the chance, I challenge the authorities in Nigeria to challenge us. Just bring the problem.
What do you think is the problem?
You see, the problem is that they have the belief that...
Is it the mindset?
The mindset, good. The mindset that Nigerian engineer cannot do. Unfortunately for us, even in medicine, Nigerians do not believe Nigerian doctors until they leave Nigeria to go somewhere for medical tourism and find out that it's a Nigerian specialist that will attend to them. In engineering, Nigerian engineers are there. We have a Nigerian engineer who is heading a research institute on nanotechnology in the US. He's a Nigerian. We have Nigerian engineers in NASA. We have Nigerian engineers in many utilities in the US. Likewise, in Europe. They are there. As I told you one time, that Nigerian Society of Engineers had even branches in the US and the UK. They are Nigerian engineers, they are in large number enough to form a branch. And they have formed a branch in Manchester, in London, and in Glasgow. Today, we are trying to form the Finland branch and the Saudi Arabian branch. They are Nigerian engineers working there. They have their first degree in Nigeria and moved out to go there and work. And if today we are challenged with any engineering problem by government, those people are there. We are here. we work together with them and solve the problem. That is why I keep saying, challenge us. Just give us the challenge. In fact, come to national television and say, sign an agreement with us that we have given you this challenge. We agree with you, you will deliver it by so time.
The body also needs to do a lot of work in this direction, because you can't say, I mean, the NSA is made up of very reputable government officials are part of your members. Yes. So you can't really blame, the authorities, really.
No, government official at which level?
Do you know Nigeria was the one that organized what we call Road Vision 2000 in the late 90s. Countries came around. We had the session in Hilton, and those who went back implemented the Road Vision. Ghana, everybody did it. We have not done it up to today. The initiators. We have the road bill that was passed by the National Assembly. Was not if we had that bill in place, the cost of infrastructure, road infrastructure will come down, because it will involve using local initiative to do some things. There's some work that could be done here. Sometimes you can even do them by direct labor or something similar. But until you have that kind of governance framework, you cannot do it. So why has the government not approved since 1999? Why? And those things, then when you award the contracts to multinationals and they come with heavy bill, you still say engineers are costly, engineers are, how are they responsible? Simple things that should be done. You will not allow those laws to be implemented, Even this railway thing, do you know what the NSC designed? This second Niger bridge? We designed a complex bridge that will have both rail line and the highway together. It would have been an iconic structure, so that people can say, oh, let me even go to Onitsha and go and fly into Asaba. Let me go on holiday to go and look at it. The way we look at things in other countries. But nobody worked on it. So we still don't have people who are futuristic in their thinking or have vision to see that what can bring about development in real terms in Nigeria, like it's done in other parts of the world, is engineering.
Just before I move on to Engineer Babakobe, I'm also wondering, and because this is your area of expertise, if you consider, and I want to read out the data I have here, data from UNICEF, that I don't know how accurate this is, 26, I mean how current it is. 26.5 million Nigerian children experience high water vulnerability. That nearly 1/3 of Nigerian children do not have enough water to meet their daily needs. This is a sharp contrast when you look at the number of water resources available in Nigeria for export. Why are we having this problem?
You see, even in Abuja, you know what we say in Abuja as a policy, and it's in our manual, is that no structure will be approved for construction on any piece of land unless that land has infrastructure. You have road, you have power, you have everything so I can just connect. But I can tell you now that some districts, not the satellite within the city now, have not had water infrastructure projects completed up till now, and people are living in them. Example, Guzape, as highbrow, that is the most expensive district in Abuja. As highbrow as it is, the water infrastructure has not been completed. So, I mean, I use that as just a case study. So, if it can happen in Abuja, you can imagine what is happening. In the States, sometimes they celebrate even borehole. The governor comes to commission borehole that individuals can do and quietly do, but they do it because they are not prioritized. And do you know that if you have water, UNICEF is correct, the statistics may not be exactly correct, but that's the situation. Most of our diseases, and if you go to the hospital to get data, you see that most of the children that fall ill have waterborne diseases. We did that in some rural areas many years ago when I was in the water. We went to the hospital to get the data, and we got it. We found that water is a challenge in Nigeria, so we had to go there and solve it. But how many states in I thought maybe Lagos and FCT, which other states Kaduna has joined, because Kaduna has gone really haywire. How many other states have shown interest in investment in water infrastructure?
Okay, this is the last question. How can engineers build sustainable products and services? In just 60 seconds, I'll come back and then we conclude. Engineer Babakobi.
Well, engineers, today, engineers have to change their mindset, or they have to revisit. They have to know that when we talk of a project now, we have the environmental issues to think about, we have economic growth and development to think about, and we have also the social needs to think about, as well as culture of the people. Now, meeting all the pillars of sustainable development. For the engineers, we also have, in meeting this, we also have to take consideration of other areas outside engineering. We have to think of eradication of poverty. We have to think of depleting resources, economic resources. We have to think of how to protect the environment. So that in the project, and then come to think about building resilient infrastructure. Resilient infrastructure, those infrastructure that right from their planning stage to design, construction, and operating stages can withstand threats, absorb the impact, and be able to recover and be adapted to new reality post-disruptive events. So this type of approach is what our engineers should adopt. I know some of these issues, in trying to implement them, it's not some of the lofty ideas, I know funding remains a challenge. It's perpetually there for developing countries, where Nigeria is not an exception. So the government might have the intention, but funding is remain an issue. So it's left also for the engineers to devise ways of using materials that are cheaper.
Local content.
Yes, using local materials, recycling materials, and using renewable issues, so that we can keep costs at bay, so that the national economy can afford the innovations and to gain sustainable development and save our human life and the planet.
Engineer Woodale, in 60 seconds, how can engineers provide sustainable products?
Well, in engineering, everything has standards. And these standards are now being developed or reviewed to reflect sustainability and the environment, especially the environment. And everything about sustainability goes around, as Babakobi said, around how to preserve the environment, how to live in the environment and preserve the environment. And so we will advise our colleagues to always stick to the standards and codes. And once we do that, we'll be able to produce products and services that are sustainable.
Okay, just Engineer Kashim, what do engineers do? How can they provide sustainable products and services?
I think the President has talked about it. The truth is, every engineering process is regulated, every bit of it. And the processes are always reviewed, updated from time to time. In fact, that is why we say that sometimes if you decide to stay in your cocoon, if you go and sleep for 1 year, when you come back, you would have lost 10 years of knowledge. So you keep updating and everything, because engineering is about the utilization of science and mathematics for the using natural resources for the benefit of mankind. So the mankind is always the focus of the engineer, and is always doing anything to make mankind comfortable on earth.
Engineer Kashim Ali, former President, Nigerian Society of Engineers, and Koren. Engineer Mohammed Babakobi, fellow Nigerian Society of Engineers, and Engineer Tasiu Gidari Woodale, 33rd President of the Nigerian Society of Engineers. Gentlemen, I'd like to appreciate you and to say thank you for sharing your perspectives on engineering and sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's it on Late Edition this week. I'd like to thank you very much. Do join us again next week for another discussion from me and the production crew. Bye-bye.